Can ask for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ebel and Mr. Loris, let me address my questions to both of you. As this bill, the offshore title currently is drafted, states that would participate would receive 50% of the offshore development. Currently, in the just by comparison, the revenue from the Gulf states is shared at 37.5%, and the rest of it goes to the Land and Water Conservation Fund. So my question to begin with, this 50% to the states, is that fair? Is that equitable? Is that a good thing in your estimation? Mr. Loris, I'll begin with you.
I do think so, and I think if they assume even more responsibility, then they should get an even greater share of the revenue.
Thank you, Representative Hice. I think it's a question for debate by the committee. As I said, the federal royalties for the federal land states, those lands are in the state as an imposition. The federal waters are federally owned, they're not state-owned. So I think the argument could be made that the royalties should be less, maybe 37.5%. On the other hand, the environmental risks and the balancing between different values might mean that the royalty should be higher than 50%. I think I would defer to the prudential judgments of the members of the subcommittee on this and let you guys work it out. I think also the fees to be paid if you want a moratorium need to be worked out, and it's not clear to me where they should be set either. And I think you probably have a lot more interest in getting that right. And I'll defer to you on that as well.
Okay, but overall, it may need to be tweaked one way or the other, but it doesn't appear to be unreasonable.
No, not at all.
All right, Mr. Anderson, let me ask you this. It came up a while ago with the state of Utah. We've got the federal government failing, frankly, to effectively manage the oil and gas permitting process. What kind of impact does that have on local communities and states?
It's huge. You know, like I said, there are some areas in our state that just can't provide the recreational opportunities that, other parts in our state can, like with Zion's National Park. Not all public lands are the same, and as such, we have some areas that need oil and gas development. One, for the royalties that our state receives, and two, almost more importantly, for the economic boon that it provides these communities. It's really the lifeblood of them, and they have to have it, and without it, we're leaving rural America behind. These communities don't have the opportunities that many of other parts of our state does.
And at best, that economic boom is delayed years and years and years as we have backlogs in the permitting process that seems to never get resolved.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly. A great example of that, I was reading an article a few days ago that down in New Mexico in the San Juan Basin, it was taking over 120 days to approve an oil permit, and that's a problem. When there's an oil boom, you need to make it happen quickly. You need to make sure it gets out there so these states and communities can get on it as soon as possible.
Okay, I want to come back, Mr. Loris and Mr. Ebel, to you to wrap up here. I really like this idea. I like the direction this is moving here, but I do have a question regarding certain states that have a particular issue that may be involved. For example, offshore in Georgia, we have the breeding ground for the right whale. Okay, so what happens in a case like that? Suppose there are resources that are discovered, this, that, and the other. What happens when there is a legitimate issue involved here? Would Georgia, in that case, for example, be responsible for the lost production fee?
Representative, I am not an expert in the permitting of offshore oil, but I do know that the environmental permitting process is very rigorous, and that many resources are, it's the decision of the land managers is that we're not going to go ahead because the environmental permitting is
so there would be a waiver.
Sufficient. Or they could be, we withdraw this tract because we don't think we can satisfy
Mr. Loris,
the environmental.
my time's running out, Mr. Loris.
Yeah, that's what I would echo those concerns. If there's a waiver for something that's of a legitimate concern, that's echoed by both the State Environmental Resources Department and also by the Department of Interior, you could have a process where those concerns have some sort of footing where the state isn't paying for a lost production fee.
Yeah, that, I think that'd be important when there are legitimate issues, not to be penalized if you're not able to do the development. Thank you to each of you for being here, and I yield back.